What's up, boys and girls, Lambo here, and in today's video I'm gonna come at you with another free MMR Friday guide. Today a ZvZ one, and it's gonna be... I have no name for this, I'm just gonna call this CIS special for now, because it's what the Bly and Vanya are playing all the time. It's a relatively easy to execute build, and one of my YouTube subscribers, his name is Harrison, really wanted the new ZvZ guide because he's been struggling in that matchup. And I watched his stream a bunch, and he also seems to be struggling a lot with 12 pull, so I'm gonna also make a how to beat 12 pull guide. Pretty much just for him, but also because I then saw, you know, a lower level Zerg player, what they really struggle with and what is played a lot. I think his MMR is somewhere around Platinum 3 to Masters 1, so that's at least what the gameplay looked like. Either way, this one is gonna be relatively easy to play and to execute. So I hope you guys will like it. The idea is we're going for a +1 melee pressure from 2 base with a wall at the front. So you're it's basically idiot proof. You cannot die against any Ling Bane all-ins, anything like that, as any 2 base opener is. And then basically we're gonna pressure when +1 melee and Ling speed is done. And then go into Roach Ravager Ling all-in afterwards with 1-1. That's the plan. So the build order is 16 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool, as always, and then we rally the next 3 drones into gas. If you have problems with 12 pool, especially before my guide comes out, on short maps you can go for pool before gas. It doesn't really slow down any of the 2 base builds. So especially if you want to go for any of the 2 base builds, going pool before gas is fine. We go 21st drone. None of this is really interesting. And then we go Overlord and Drone, as we always do in ZvZ. And now the first thing that happens is, the moment you scout that you're up against Hatch first, you throw down an Evolution Chamber. Now, if you would want to start +1 melee right away, you would start the Evolution Chamber at 24 gas, or like around 20 gas, so when the Evo Chamber is finished, you're going to be able to start +1 melee, whereas at the point where I'm starting the Evo Chamber right now, it's going to be done by the time that when I have 150 gas, so I could theoretically start +1 carapace right away, but we want melee because it makes our speed finish quite a bit faster. And melee is going to be done by the time we cross the map anyways. I just don't want you guys to start an Evolution Chamber if your opponent is playing pool first, because that's not good against any of the pool firsts, to be honest. Because pool first usually goes either into 2 base, very often can be a Ling Bane all-in, so gas pool hatch. Which you can see usually a difference in the hatch timing. Sometimes you can't. Successful. They have a very cool build. Either way, just do this in hatch first versus hatch first. And then the moment the Evo Chamber is done, you start +1 melee. You go only drones. You don't make any links unless you're in 2 base versus 2 base scenario, which I will talk about a little bit later on in the video. And we start a 3rd queen immediately at our natural. Now we should be at 33 out of 33 supply. And now we start a drone in the natural and an overlord in the main base. So 30 for overlord is the next thing you guys need to notice. So start +1 melee the moment the Evo is done. 30 for overlord. Now the moment we have 100 gas, we start Zergling speed. Now at 3 minutes we start an Evolution Chamber. This is so... with some other builds you start an Evolution Chamber a little bit earlier, but in this case we wouldn't have the gas to immediately start an upgrade, and we're gonna fake +1 missile right away.
Newly birthed queen ready.
Then we start the Roach Warren when we have the money. So I go up to... I spent all my larva from this first inject into drones, and then when you have the money for it, you start a Roach Warren. For you guys, I'm gonna say at 320 you start a Roach Warren, just so you guys have a time. Usually I would never look at that, I would just start as many drones as possible. We also do not start an overlord yet, very important. Then we go back into the main, and at this point we start our 3 overlords. We also start the +1 missile right away. So I'm doing the overlords a little bit one by one, but you guys can just go for 3 overlords right away to not get supply blocked, and then start messing links. As I said, I'm just trying to make this as easy as possible for you. So we start +1 missile as a fake. If you guys forget to cancel this upgrade, because we're going to cancel it and restart the +1 carapace, you just not make it. Yeah. If there is no upgrade, your opponent, it might be a little bit obvious what's going on, but it could also be Muta, theoretically. So, not sure how bad exactly that would be. Obviously, your opponent can see that your Evo Chamber is not wiggling if it isn't. So yeah. If your opponent also goes for Zergling speed, and you see a couple of extra Zerglings, what I suggest you guys do is you put the wall in a way where one queen blocks it. So some wall off like this, it can look a little bit different. This Evo could be here as well if there was any creep tumor. If it was here, it would actually be a little bit better because it zones out a little bit more for him not seeing the larva. This is also why this build is stronger, by the way, if you have the bottom spawn on every map, because with the bottom spawn you can never see the Zerglings in production, whereas now if he gets lucky he can see Zerglings spawning, but don't worry about that too much, you can do it from both spots. So at this point, again, we should be 16 out of 16, 16 out of 16 and 3 in gas. And we should be only producing Zerglings at this point, right? So this is the drone count we go up to, and now we're just flooding links. And now after this inject spawns, we should be around... I actually missed an inject for like 2 seconds here. Around this time, you start making a round of links, and then you leave the base. The reason for this, even though you already should have speed by now, is that you want your opponent to use the larva of his inject, right? You also had an inject. You see he just made drones, right? So we're waiting for us to spend this inject and then move out, basically. It should be around 420, the timing at which you move out. As you move out, you take a third hatchery and you go double gas, okay? And I make one more drone because I hate uneven drone numbers. Actually thought I was at 33. Alright, this is because I made a second evolution chamber. So you can make like 1 or 2 drones afterwards, but mostly just make links and still produce links up until you're at 60 supply. And then just try to take a fight. Your links should be stronger than your opponents. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about the execution here. At this point, after these finish, you just saturate them. You saturate the gas immediately when you have the time. And then you just make 12 roaches and then you go across the map and try to kill your opponent. So just make sure to not hotkey roaches so you don't run across the map right away. Just make them, maybe even without hotkeying them if you don't have a second hotkey for the roaches. And just try to micro the link, so you don't even need to look back at your base besides for the injects. So it's relatively easy, right? We go to 60 supply, and at this point we're just gonna start making roaches. At this point my opponent was a little bit unprepared, so we're gonna take very good trades. So this is the scenario in which... I mean, this scenario will be pretty common, honestly, because usually you cancel a bailing nest and then you make a bunch of speedlings and then you make a roach warren. And if you kill a third base with this, that's good. But if you also take a great link trades, that's even better usually. So try to go for the third base, and then if he defends it and you see he has less links, try to surround them, and then it's usually a dance back and forth. But you force him to engage while attacking this base. You don't want to go in here because that drones are very powerful in the early game. Even though you have +1 melee. So you just want to try to fight out in the open. If you kill the base, that's already enough damage. You can see my hesitation of going in here. And at home, we're making roaches at this point. Try to not get supply blocked. So yeah, I think I made 11 roaches. So either way, like between 10 and 12 roaches is the count that you should go for. And then the moment you have all of them, you start moving out. Please, with all of them at the same time, don't start moving out with 5 because you're gonna build them not all at the same time. In this game I saw he lost his base, so he wanted to counterattack, in which case I knew I had enough at home because I was making roaches, obviously, because we were all in ourselves. So I went for the counterattack to force him to re-wall here. And then even I killed his roach warren. I do not think I ended up killing the Evo Chamber, no, because I didn't want to lose too many links. And then we just ran across the map and killed him pretty much. The way you execute this attack is you have Ravager Ling. Preferably you want the links on a different hotkey because you want to move them individually, but you can also all have them on one hotkey and then just go for a surround. And once you surrounded his army, there's no way his roaches will two-shot you. You can see he has +1 missile right now, which means his roaches, because of the +1 cap, still take 3 shots to kill me, so you go for a surround and then you try to corrosive bile. The roaches, also for corrosive bile, kills an egg, so usually, very often you're gonna fight somewhere around here, so you can actually cancel his units before they even spawn, which is great if you don't have a massive surround on roaches otherwise. And yeah, this was pretty straightforward where I could just kill him. Now I'm gonna talk about what could go wrong with this build, because there's gonna be some scenarios that look a lot worse than this. I did not tell him before what I was gonna do. This was just the one game that we played. Legit, I just told him to play standard, and also shout out to Sort of for playing with me and helping me again. For a YouTube guide, I really appreciate it. You guys can also follow him. I think it's Sort of maybe sort of SC on YouTube as well. I'm sure if you search, you can find it. He also makes great guides himself. Either way, let's talk about what could go wrong. So first of all, I think this might be a little risky to play against lower level players, like maybe below diamond, that don't know that you're supposed to cancel the bailing nest when you go 3 base against 2 base. And then they're going to have a bailing nest, which is actually the counter to the link pressure, obviously, right? You guys can still go for it, and if you actually execute it the way I did and you spend your money half decently, it should still be super powerful. But let's talk about what happens if your opponent has a bailing nest and banelings ready. So if he has banelings, the way you play against it is obviously you need to micro well, but you try to split up your links. So what I would do is I send the first bunch of links, maybe 20 or so, towards the 3rd base and just micro those around. And then usually what happens is all of the banelings go there, and you can try to run into the natural with the rest of your links, and you should be able to take good trades there, whereas wherever the banelings are, you just run away. I think it's going to be very rare on lower levels that your opponent is going to split their banelings. I think that should be very rare, even for like low grandmasters copying this. So that's the way you want to execute that. You want to split your Zerglings. I know this also might lead to you guys not looking at the Zerglings at the right time and losing them to banelings, but you gotta live with that. That's just one of the risks that you gotta take. You gotta live a little. So that's one of the things that could go wrong. The second thing is you start your evolution chamber before you realize it's 2 base versus 2 base. What I want you guys to do in 2 base versus 2 base is to take a 3rd base the moment you have the minerals. You also do not make the second evo this early in the wall. You also don't need the roach one quite as early, but you instead take a 3rd hatch relatively fast, and you make some Zerglings around the same time, but not quite as many, and you go up to like 41 drones. Because you have an earlier 3rd hatch, this would be fine. And one thing that Bly did against me recently, which I thought was pretty cool, is you still go for this attack. You want to wait a little bit longer, actually, because you want enough Zerglings to surround his roaches. He's going to have roach speed, so it's going to be a little bit harder to hold them in place. So you want like 2 layers of Zerglings surrounding his entire roach body. So basically you want to start engaging when you have maybe 100 supply or something. So we're going 3 gas, Ravager Ling. Again, we make the 12 roaches. You just try to turn all of them into Ravagers. And then usually if your opponent tries to defend their 3rd base, you're still going to win the game. One more thing that you can do is you can start trying to kill the wall to force him to engage into you, which is awesome. But you do not just run into the 2 base. So you try to kill the wall first, and then if you see an opportunity, you can try to surround his units. But very often they can kite back, and it's kind of rough fighting wherever he has walls, because you're usually not going to get a surround with the Zerglings, a clean surround, so you can always kite away from the corrosive bites and then just kill your links slowly but surely. So what Bly did against me is he actually made a lair while moving out already, and then just adding a 4th gas, staying at the same junk count, still doing the same thing, trying to kill my 3rd base, and then going Muta behind it, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I think that's one of the things that you can do when going 2 base against 2 base, although I think if you execute this correctly, once again, I think you're still going to be able to just win most games with it. Honestly, it's not that hard of a build to play, so I would give it a 2.5 out of 5 difficulty rating, as I do with most of the Free MMR Friday, or all of them, as I give them a difficulty rating based on how hard it is to execute the build. I think doing the build itself, the build order, is super, super easy, and it also simplifies the early game quite a lot, because you do not have to you do not have to worry about any of the Ling Bane stage, right? Now, the reason I think it might be a little bit harder is because you have to micro with the Zerglings initially, and then preferably, if you want to execute it correctly, you should have the Zerglings on a separate hotkey, but it's a relatively easy build to pull off, and it will punish a lot of different stuff, like people that try to go greedy into mutas, it will automatically kill, and just people that try to be greedy against 2 base in general. So you're just going to get a bunch of free wins with this, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. Obviously, shout out to Bly and Vanya, who do this build for years already, like every second ZvZ. I actually asked Vanya if he thought of any cool names for this build. For now, I'm just gonna call it the CIS special, because those two really do it all the time. And yeah, they've had decent success with it. I definitely lost against it a bunch myself, so it can be played up to the highest level. And I think it also goes well together with the other Free MMR Friday build, with the other 2 base, so you guys have a bunch of 2 base variations, right? And maybe I'm going to add a couple more to this list in the future. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe and leave a comment and leave a like and all that kind of stuff. I believe when I hit certain sub goals, I'm going to start doing stuff on YouTube as well. I'm already doing this on my Twitch, obviously, so if you guys want more videos, you can make sure to subscribe and support me on my Twitch, but I'm also going to do the same on YouTube. So maybe at like 9,000 subscribers or so, I'm going to do maybe a ZvZ week, similar to how I did a ZvP week, or maybe a ZvT week. I haven't really decided yet. Either way, if you guys like what you saw, let me know in the comments, and if you guys have any suggestions as well. That was a pretty long outro, sorry for that. See you guys.